everyone. Welcome to Writing Easy, the podcast that takes the act of writing, which is sometimes not easy, and tries to make it less not easy. I'm one of your hosts, Mary Mascari.
And I'm your other host, Melissa Long.
Today we have a special guest with us, obviously not physically with us, for various reasons. But joining us today is our classmate, Jay Smith. Hi, Jay.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Jay, you've done lots of things. I'm impressed by the amount of things you do. You've written 2 books, at least. More than that, but 2 are out.
Yeah.
And done tons of podcasts. But one of the things that's particularly cool about you, besides the many things, is that you've done a lot of audio drama.
Yeah.
You've taken this medium that Melissa and I use to sort of prattle on, and you're actually doing something dramatic with it.
Yeah, there are a lot of us out there now.
How did you get started doing this?
I've always loved audio drama. I grew up in a household with radio drama playing all the time. My dad would take me on errands Sunday night, and our local PBS station would be playing CBS Radio Mystery Theater, stuff like that. So I was really fascinated by it. But it was the age of Star Wars, so I was distracted by the visual medium and wanted to get into film. But always, I tried to tell stories in that medium because, one, it was cheap to do big, epic stuff. You know, you could do Star Wars in audio for a fraction of the cost, and it was a way that I could work on on screenplays and on audio plays and on stage plays and try and incorporate them into something that I could actually produce locally. So I was always fascinated with like Arch Oboler and Orson Welles and the anthologies of pulp speculative fiction that were all over the golden age of radio. And I really fell in love with the idea of telling a story with voice, music, and sound, and having one sense completely eliminated from the equation and trying to convey the imagery of a story just with those elements.
Yeah.
It's very appealing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think that was one of the things I was really excited about when I was reading your bio and discovered that you were doing these audio like dramas, because I just discovered them within the last year. I think the pandemic and being in quarantine has made me obsessed with these. And I just didn't listen to them beforehand, but you've been doing them for years and they're so good. And so I'm really curious about, your process and how you do this, because it's not exactly the same thing as just reading off your book.
The process, it's all about the story, and there's some stories that are more challenging to tell than others. If you're wanting to do something like a Michael Bay type of a story, obviously you're just going to be drowning in a cacophony of noise that has no significance. But I tend to write in dialogue. I tend to write procedurals and conversations that lead to suspense and conflict and resolution. So there's not a lot of kinetic activity. There are not a lot of parkour or visual cues, which is ironic because the first thing I wrote was a zombie horror serial. And you'd think that was really about the zombies and the horror and the gore and whatnot. But what I found fascinating about zombie stories, at least the good ones, is that it's about human connection and about people at odds with what needs to be done in a crisis. And this was back in like 2009 when zombies weren't oversaturating the market. So it was still a fresh medium, genre to talk about how people interact and resolve conflicts in situations where they don't have a first world infrastructure to rely upon. So it was easy for me to create a drama about how people react in a situation that's completely out of their control and they don't have the resources that they typically would have. So that's the kind of story that I'm interested in. If you go back to the Westerns of the Golden Age, they weren't about chases on horseback. They were about people trying to survive in what they describe as a savage land, and trying to bring what is now aged like milk, the manifest destiny of American culture to the quote-unquote savage West. But in that conflict, you have character development. You don't have exposition. You have people who are working problems out and interacting and building chemistry together. And that's what I think is the strength of audio drama in the modern world.
It always comes down to character, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
the other cool thing about an audio drama is that it's a serial, which is kind of an unusual format creatively, these days. I mean, I guess television shows are kind of serialized, but not completely. But I think really this medium, this podcast audio drama, or audio, doesn't have to be drama, it can be comedy, but you know what I mean, dramatized, is really the only true serial I think that we really have now. Comic books maybe, I guess, but so how do you handle the serialized version of it? Like, is this a thing where you have it all planned out ahead of time? Are you pulling a Lost and winging it? Do you know how long to make the thing? How do you approach that?
It's parallel to what streaming television is today. I go back to episodic television and radio where you have to wrap things up because it's all fire and forget broadcasting. But I was also brought up on Buffy and Angel, where serialized television grew. And the rule of that is basically you can tell a self-contained story within an episode, but it has to advance the larger plot. So by the end of the episode, the characters have learned something, grown a little bit, and they have another element that they need to confront the larger threat that is representative of the entire season. Like with HG World, you have a band of people who are in a tactical situation, but they also have a strategic problem. They're surrounded by imminent death, but even if they get past this initial challenge, they have to plan for the future. So over the course of 10 episodes, you have to plan for how do we get out of this immediate mess, but how does that resolution get them somewhat closer to that ultimate goal? And then how do I keep it interesting enough for the listener to come back? A lot of that is character growth, where you have a character that sacrifices something for the greater good, or you have a growing conflict between your alphas or stuff like that just the listener wants to come back and see how we resolve it.
So it sounds like it keeps coming back to character. Yeah. Like there's no plot. It's just more character, which is frustrating as heck for me. I don't like that. Please change it. Okay, so here's the other thing that's weird about this. And Melissa, you'll probably identify with this more than I do, is, because doing television, is you're also still collaborating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a lot of fun because I grew up in theater, and theater is a collaborative medium. And I kind of, one of my idols is Harlan Ellison, who believes that he is the all of the script. And I can fundamentally disagree with him on that, is that writing is simply what's on the page. And if I'm writing a novel, I am inhabiting every aspect of every character, and I'm carrying that load for the reader. But the blessing of having a cast, especially a really talented one, is that they will push back on things that they feel is not authentic to the character, or something that's it's just unusual or just doesn't sit well with them. And the end result, through collaboration and dialogue with actors, is they tend to bring the best ideas. There's some elements of ego, but when I'm writing 12 different characters, I'm not focusing on one of them. The actor typically inhabits their role, so they're the best person to come to me and say, hey, on page 12, you have me saying something that I think another character should say, which is awesome.
Yeah, in film and television, we often say that you make a TV show or a movie 3 times, right? You make it when you write it down on the page, you make it when you film it with the performance that the actors give and under the director, and then you make it again in the editing room when you're cutting things out. So like each time is a chance to reshape and retell the vision of that story. And it seems like that would hold true for doing an audio podcast like this.
Oh, absolutely. What's great is that sometimes an actor can transform a role. I wrote a part that was simply there as an obstacle to a goal, and the actor came in, did a reading for it, and he took it and made it into a full season-long character that our listeners responded to more positively than our leads. It's a character called Dogberry, and he was just basically this former .com millionaire who got naked and wandered into the woods one day, and he was living like Smeagol. And all he was there to do was say, this helicopter that you found in the woods is mine because I found it, and act like a real eccentric hillbilly. And it just, the audience was like, who the hell is this character and who is this actor? And so I just built on his character. And Lee Sands, who's the actor, he didn't have a whole lot of experience, but he just has this unique presence. And I found myself writing for him, just that unique voice. And I knew his contribution to that with that voice was something that just made the show that much more rewarding for me, because I just had it was a delight to get his files. When he would deliver me his lines, I would just sit back and just laugh my ass off because of just how fun he made it.
That's the best. That is magic. Like, that's liquid gold right there when that happens.
Oh yeah, yeah, love that.
It actually brings up a really good point of, that they record. You have the actors recording them separately, and then they send you their part, and you or someone else edits them together.
Yeah, that's kind of an obsolete way of doing it. Back in the day, we didn't have as much bandwidth as we do now, so getting everybody into a Skype call and recording it with professional quality was very limiting. We couldn't really deliver on that. So a partner of mine on Hidden Harbor Mysteries, Brian Lincoln, really hated this process because it was labor intensive to have everybody record their lines and then cut it all together and hope that everybody sounds like they're in the same room and have the chemistry of working together. So we moved toward a rehearse, record, and then re-record process where we would get together, we would work out how we were going to do this for real, go through a couple of rehearsals, record the rehearsals, and then the actors would take those takes back to their labs and do a full recording. And so we had nailed down, how are you guys going to interact? The chemistry was there. They just basically was copying and pasting their performance into a new file, basically. But in the end, we could just take a limited number of files and just drop them over top of what the rehearsal recording was, which made it a lot easier. And plus, the chemistry was a lot more natural.
Still sounds like it's a lot of work.
It
still sounds very time intensive. I'm very lazy.
Well, I mean, Mary, what isn't? What isn't time intensive?
Well, I was dumb. Started writing more and more characters into this because I had actors wanting to participate, and I'm like, I'm not going to let them walk away from this. So at one point, I had an episode with 25 people, and the engineer that I work with Mike Stokes, threatened to kill me because he was the one who was trying to get every different file to sound like they were in the same environment, and everybody has a different kit.
Yeah.
So he's just like, no, you're not doing this again. You're killing off half the cast before the next episode. Like, okay, all right. You can tell them.
It's them or me, and you need me, so too bad.
Yeah, pretty much. I started with basically a Fisher-Price type of setup. I had the most basic tools to record, and it sounded meh, but we were only trying to be meh at the time. But once it started to take off a little bit and people started to respond to the story and saying, hey, this would be much better if you had a decent sounding setup. Mike Stokes stepped in, and he's a musician. He's got this got this mega mind kind of headquarters where he's got every type of audio application. He's a wizard with this stuff. So in the show, if you listen to it, if you go and start listening to the early stuff, you're going to hear some really raw kind of sound. Fisher-Price level, just that some 5-year-old just cobbled this together. But then when Mike takes over, you hear it. We went to almost Big Finish, Audible type full cast audio drama style.
Wow.
We brought in a bunch of people who did this for a living, and they did it with us for fun. So we had that going for us. So we just really focused on immersive experience and trying to get everybody to sound like they're invested in the story and that they're really committed to somebody directly in front of their face, not on the other side of the world. Because I think we were working with actors on 3 different continents at one point.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still scared about doing this. This sounds like fun, but I'm scared.
Yeah, Jay, so what do we need to know? If we want to try this, like try our hand at it, what advice would you give to somebody brand new who has a big dream of starting their own?
I would say start small. I like dialogue. Dialogue typically is the best suited format for radio at first. It's easy to take a couple of characters that are in a conflict. Take a scene from a Tom Stoppard play where it's just back and forth. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. The game of questions, for example, just the 2 people going back and forth. And you can get them in a room on the same Skype call or the same team meeting and have them record it. And then if you have a program like Audacity or Rock Band
GarageBand.
GarageBand, thank you. I don't have that.
Rock Band's a cool video game.
It is a video game, yes. That's what I remember.
I mean, you can do that too, but that won't help your podcast.
The one I use is Reaper. I use Reaper because, one, it was free when I first bought it or first downloaded it. But it's one of those, you build as you go. It's your toolbox, and as you learn one tool, you put it in the box. Reaper is really good for
nice.
that. And it's not really that expensive if you want to get to the full version. That's what we typically used. And you just have to fumble your way through it. There's Casey Wayland is the producer of a show called We're Alive. He and I started our zombie series at the same time. He is currently working for Audible and BBC, producing professional audio. He's an amazing architect of sound. Sorry about that. That was our local motorcycle club.
It was good timing.
Right.
Yeah. And he's got a book out that I think is amazing for someone who's just starting out. I have no problem plugging him because he knows what he's talking about.
And you're looking it up now.
I'm looking it up right now.
We can hear the tick-tack. Like, oh,
we like experts, though.
Here it is, folks. This is live, fresh from the... See, I'm good for you, because what I always do is I just go, the thing, I'll put it in the notes later, because I can never remember things, because age and life, and yeah.
So we'll splice this in. It's called Bombs Always Beep. Revenge of the Beep.
Bombs Always Beep.
It's creating modern audio theater. It's available as an ebook, and
wow.
he does have some print editions somewhere on Amazon. But it is a comprehensive soup to nuts kind of, you want to set this up, here you go. But without looking at that, I would say make sure you have the same kind of equipment that you would have for a professional podcast. Make sure you have access
to motorcycle groups outside.
Exactly. Here's the thing. I wanted to record. I wanted to get back into this, but the house that we're currently in is on the flight line, not only to an international airport, but Air Force Reserve. So literally once a month, I have Air Force One on maneuvers above my house at the time that I could be recording. So this is God's way of saying, let the other actors perform. You just sit back and write.
Hey guys, it's Mary here. I'm just bursting in to kind of let you guys know our conversation with Jay went on for a while. It was really good, but since we like to keep the episodes short, we're going to break it up into 2 parts. So this is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for the thrilling conclusion of our conversation with Jay Smith next week. And so in the meantime, we'll just remind you that writing is hard. Oh, sorry, Melissa's not here. So take it easy. See you next week. Bye-bye.